Welcome to Buckets, brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by Albert Nguyen, the analytics capper. You can catch him on Twitter and in the Action Network app at Analytics Capper. And this is your best bets episode for the finals, Game 5, between the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. The Celtics are 6.5-point favorites in the market. There is a 7 out there. Also, 209.5 is where you can find the total. There is a 209. So we've seen a little bit of difference in the market as we head into this one. Albert Nguyen was in Boston for Game 4 of the finals as the Dallas Mavericks kicked themselves out of the grave back onto the comforting ground of the graveyard. They're still in the graveyard, though, as the Celtics try and wrap this up. We'll let you know everything you need to bet for this game. He's got lots of bets. I don't have any, and we'll get into why in a second. Want to let you know, by the way, that we will be doing Buckets Live. Again, we were not available for Game 4, but we will be on for Game 5. After the game, we will break down what happened. We'll look to, if the Celtics wrap up, we will wrap up the season and look towards next year's title crop. If the Mavericks win, then we'll look towards Game 6 and talk about what we've seen and whether momentum has truly turned. Interesting series now, a little bit, I will say, because if you were somebody that believed in the Mavericks, all it took was one game. And now I see, don't let him get one. Series is turning. History says otherwise. We'll get into some of that. But Albert, first off, thanks for joining me on a Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to you, buddy. You have a very long list. What are your best bets for Game 5?
Yeah, I appreciate that. First, I actually wasn't in Boston for Game 4. The game was in Dallas, but I was there for Game 2.
That's right.
I was in Dallas for Game 4, and I scheduled Game 7. So hopefully we have something cooking there. But yeah, I have a lot of bets for Game 5. I do like the Mavericks plus 6.5. That I want to start with that. And I don't think the series turned by any means, but I think this game is going to be rather competitive with all the pressure on Boston. Luka over 32.5 points is another look I'm on. He hasn't hit that yet. I think he had 25 or 27 in the first half in Game 4 and still didn't hit it. I like Lively over 8.5 rebounds. I'm just going to continue to ride this. He is, for all intents and purposes, the starting center. He may not start the game, but he came in with 2.5 minutes into the game in Game 4, and I think that trend continues. Horford under rebounds. I think Matt, you and I talk about this all the time, but this might be a XYZ series. This might not be an XYZ series, and I don't think this is a Horford series. I know this is Game 5. It's not a big, statement to say that, but he's getting played off the court, in my opinion. And then the last look is going to be Jrue Holiday, who I love, especially in these closeout games, over 1.5 steals and blocks.
All right. Big slate there for Albert Nguyen, the analytics capper. I do have one. I'm going to take Dante Exum over 2.5 points. That's my little bit of bet on where I'm at. You can find that at BetMGM. I also there is a BetMGM number. You can take the over on Tatum and Luka combined points.
Interesting.
And that one I like very much. I think it's 61.5. And I actually like that one quite a bit as well. So those will be my two. I unloaded on Boston in Game 4 because the entire tone of Mavericks practice and availability was very much it is what it is. Just all we gotta do is believe. And I was nope, these guys are done. And I don't honestly believe that they believe. I think that they came out. I think the Celtics were a little rattled because they sensed they knew that this was a possibility of them winning the title. I think they got shook early. They missed shots. And they had that Celtics game. They had that Celtics game that they have once every round where they just look absolutely horrible. They're not playing with precision. They're not playing with deliberation. They're not playing with intent. They're just kind of I'm going to throw the ball around and then we're going to throw up a 3. Oh, no, it didn't go in. Oh, no, you're running back the other way. Mavericks did make some tactical adjustments. There's stuff that the Mavs did. I'm not going to not give the Mavs credit here. I think the Mavs did everything they needed to do in this game. I think they came out and they punched first with the hope of let's go out and punch first. Let's leave it out there. This is our last game of the season at home. Let's at least go out there and deliver the punch. And when they did, Boston was oh no! And then just video games spiraled off the screen like Donkey Kong. And so after that happened, Dallas got rolling and the vibes were on. Crowd was back into it after the crowd was honestly just like there for a funeral before game 4.
It was
It
a
was
Boston
really, to me,
crowd.
shocking. Like, it was a Boston crowd.
Yeah.
Dallas was like, it was very much like, hey, what a great season it's been. And then they won the game, and they did all the things that you need to do in order to do that. Like, they took Boston out of it. It wasn't just Boston screwing around. They took Boston out of it, and they deserve all the credit in the world for that. But let's start with 6.5. Give your cap, and then I'll talk about some of the trends.
Yeah, to be honest, Matt, the Dallas Mavericks also punched first in game 3. It was just a really bad end to the first quarter. They ended up only leading by a point, I believe, after the first quarter, even though they were up by double digits early in that first quarter. And then they had a bad end to the first half as well. So I think the Mavericks have shown that they can punch first. Game 4 was the first time where they can actually prolong it and keep it going. I like this spot for the Dallas Mavericks because it does seem like Boston is whether they're going to cover or not. I think they most likely they're going to clinch and win their 18th NBA title, which is super amazing. But it's not going to be easy. No NBA Finals outside of that Kevin Durant 2017 Warriors team is easy. Like, they have to go through some trials and tribulations, and I think we're going to see a game finally competitive in the fourth quarter with both teams healthy, with both teams not fouled out. And I think Dallas is going to be able to keep it close. Secondly, I think Boston, at the end of the day, when it's 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, they're not trying to win the game and cover. They just want to win. So they're not worried about the 7 points that they have to beat Dallas by. So I like the look there. You might have potential for a backdoor for Dallas. So I like several spots here. And at the end of the day, I know Dallas blew them out in game 4, but they only had a 1.3-point advantage, or 1 3-point advantage. It seemed like they were, knocking down threes in a big barrage, but at the end of the day, they only made one more three than Boston. And I think if they can continue to keep that close, they'll stay competitive throughout the game.
They did increase volume there, right? And they did shoot 41% from 3, which is pretty good. They took 4 fewer than Boston, but they managed to close that gap. Now, they haven't necessarily, like, there's two ways to control that gap, right? You either don't allow Boston to shoot them, or you hit enough, or you shoot enough yourself. And they did shoot more, and they did allow Boston to shoot a large amount, 41. So many of those were above the break, and that's what everyone's there's been a lot of notes on that. That's all above the breaks threes. It's not the corner stuff. Now, I don't know. I personally just don't. I don't believe that this is some sort of like, they got it, they figured it out. I'm kind of like, no, I think Dallas played desperate and played really well, and I think the Celtics, that went back on tape when I watched yesterday, a lot of it is in the first 3 games, the Celtics were like drive, kick, drive, kick, drive, kick, drive, kick, drive, kick. We'll do it as many times as we need to in order to create the possession that we want to get the shot we want. And in game 3, or in game 4 rather, it was very much drive, kick, drive. I guess I'll try and shoot this over 2 guys. Yep. This is like, that's how the Thunder played, was like, we'll just, oh well. And I'm like, no, like, if you just keep moving the ball, Dallas's perimeter defense is so garbage, you'll be able to get a pretty good shot. Now, I thought Dallas's perimeter defense was great in this game. Luka played great on defense. Kyrie played great on defense. DJJ played great. I'm just kind of unconvinced that the success of game 4 carries over. If you're like, well, then why don't you bet the Celtics? This is the Celtics. I trusted them. I trusted them in game 4. Trusted them. Had alts on them. Nope. Blew them all. Got completely destroyed. Lost by a huge margin. Brian Fonseca would note that no team has ever been beaten like the Boston Celtics were in game 4 and won the title. That would be what he would want to note. Here are the other trends that we picked up. Teams with a chance to close the finals as a home favorite. So you've got 3 wins, you're at home, and you're a favorite. So you got a chance to get the home win to close. 10-4 straight up, 8-6 against the spread ATS. Now, again, one game goes differently, and that's 7-7. So not like a big margin there on the ATS. It does say that they typically tend to win this game. This is Brandon Anderson's favorite bet, or favorite trend rather, on the spot. The Celtics are 13-3 when they're favored after a loss in the playoffs since 2020. They have always responded very well. That's ATS, 13-3 when favored after a loss since 2020. This one is via our own PJ Walsh of the Action Network. Home favorites off a double-digit loss since 2005 in the playoffs. 149, 112, and 5. That's 57%. I looked up off a 15-point loss after round 2. So in the conference finals or finals, when you've got like the final 4, cream of the crop, the best teams left, after a 15-point loss or more, if you're a home favorite, 16-4 straight up, 15-5 against the spread. That's probably the strongest one. And teams with a chance to win the title off of a loss are 4-1 in the finals, ADS and straight up. So all of the trends say that Boston's going to win this game. Now, I've noted this, that trends have been wonky in these playoffs. It's been a weird year. And so I don't necessarily want to bet based off of the trend. I still show value at 6.5. Like, I would still make this, like I said at the beginning of the series, it need to be at least 8.5. At 7, I do show value on Boston. I'm just not necessarily, I just don't have the appetite to bet it. So if you ask me for like the lean, 100% Celtics. The Celtics should blow them out. Like, the Celtics should wipe this team off the face of the earth after that embarrassment in Game 4. 64% of the tickets, 61% of the money is on the Dallas Mavericks. So the public is right back in on them, as they have been throughout this entire series. And on the series price, public loves the Dallas Mavericks. We've seen sharp movement for this down to 6.5. We are tracking sharp movement on Boston. So the sharps, I think, are pretty consistently, they've been a little bit all over the board, and I don't necessarily think that they've been right. Like, I don't think the line movement is tracked in the right way. But that's kind of where the market is. I would just say that for the most part, this is a very public spot for the Dallas Mavericks, as it has been all playoffs, and especially in these finals. All right, Al Horford on the unders. Give me your cap on why you don't think this is a Horford series.
Yeah, I mean, he ended up playing 23 minutes in Game 4, and a lot of that was circumstantial or situational, but he just hasn't had the same amount of effect if he's not hitting his 3 ball. He ended up 1 for 1 in Game 3. I think it was early in the third quarter. But the athleticism, the speed, and the length of the young guys, the young centers for Dallas, in my opinion, is kind of playing Horford out. And unless Horford is going to camp in a corner and take and hit threes, which he hasn't been all series, I think they're going to continue to play small, just because they need the athleticism to keep up with the Liveleys and the Gaffords of the world. If this becomes a series where, and another thing is, we may have, a few minutes of Porzingis. I don't know if he's playing. I haven't really followed the news there. But if he's playing, I think that also hurts and eats into Horford's minutes and ability to hit or grab rebounds. So I do like the under here. He only had 3 in game 4, and again, a lot of that was circumstantial. But he just hasn't been the interior force that we've seen in years past.
All right, so let's talk about Porzingis real quickly. So on the Porzingis front, Joe Mazzulla before Game 4 said that KP was available and he would play in very specific circumstances. I largely think that might have been like to get him some time on the court when they secured the title, right? Mm-hmm. I will say this is speculative. This is not based on reporting at all. I am saying this just my experience. I don't think he plays. I've said this since he was out in Game 3, where I was like, look, with the type of injury that he has, it doesn't get better. Like, it doesn't get better. It's either it gets like it will get better eventually with time, but it's not like 2 or 5 days is going to make a difference in his availability. And so when he was not able to go in Game 3, I didn't think he'd go in Game 4. I said that they could win without Kristaps Porzingis. They did. They won Game 3. And so I just don't see a scenario where he plays. Maybe I'm wrong and he's able to go and it's like way better. It's like, oh, hey, he had a week. It's night and day, but I would not expect him to play, which means more minutes for Horford. I will say he's shooting 43%. Horford is shooting 43% in the series from 3. So like he's hit him. And a large part of it, I think, is that he didn't get very many shots in game 4 and didn't hit the ones that he did. I kind of think there's a game script where Boston wins, and it's largely because the Mavericks try and do what they did, which is like, we're going to cheat off and leave you open, and we're going to just cram this rim tight because that's what we've been doing all playoffs. We're going to dare these good shooters to miss, which is how we got here. And I think there's a scenario where like Horford hits 4 threes and that's it. Like, that's entirely possible. That said, I would say this: I don't think that there's a lot of confidence in the other options. Like Cornette, clearly they don't think can play. He did not play him at all in game 3 and only played him in garbage time game 4. So they've gone to Tillman. Tillman's a lot easier for Luka to attack, even though the individual stuff, and you're like, well, Tillman blocked him in these kind of sequences. Yes, but if you look at the overall effectiveness in those matchups, attacking Tillman in pick and roll, and a lot of this gets into like some of the dynamics that are really, this is nitty gritty stuff. The other teammates for Boston don't trust him the way they trust Horford. And so they help off a little bit more. And once you start helping, that's where Dallas is in its comfort zone. That's where Dallas creates threes. That's where Dallas creates lobs. Like, that's where their comfort zone is. And so in large part, I do think that like that's kind of part of the equation there. So I think Horford still plays. Now, he just may not be effective. You might hit this anyway. Like, that's one of the problems I always have with props, is like, I can game plan out like, no, I think he's going to get minutes. Yeah, I think he's going to get open threes, and he just might not do anything.
Yeah,
He just might not do anything.
Yeah, he still has to have a really good rebounding game to hit this over. So that's why I like
Yep.
the under, even if he gets the minutes. Correct.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Lively over 8.5 rebounds. This one seems pretty obvious. He's been the second best Maverick in this series. I think he's been better than Kyrie. So I would say this one's pretty obvious, but why specifically do you like Lively over 8.5?
Yeah, it's opportunity and minutes. I mean, he hit, I think, 12 rebounds in 22 minutes in game 4. So it's not the amount of time, because even within 20 minutes he's going to hit this. It's just his ability to do the other things that has really gotten trust from Jason Kidd, right? Because of that, he's going to get all these opportunities. And when he's in the game, when he's defensive rebounding, you could tell the other Mavericks are just stepping back, boxing out their guys, and letting Lively go up and get it. And I think we'll see that a few times. And if we don't see the lob game, which Boston has been really, really great at shutting that down and just playing Luka, and Luka continues to miss these bunnies around the rim, look for 1 or 2 offensive rebounds from Lively there as well. So I think you're going to get a lot of opportunities to hit this. Obviously, we know he's had back-to-back double-double games, and the number right here is 8.5. So I'm just going to continue to ride it.
Yeah, I can't blame this one. I had Lively over 7.5 of the series, so I'm down with this one. I think the kid's amazing. The kid's going to reshape the entire arc of the Mavericks, where Luka and Lively are just gonna destroy teams for a decade. And there's been this kind of idea of like, well, Wemby's coming. I'm like, okay, that's great, but it's gonna take Wemby a couple of years to catch up, and he's got to get the team around him. And Luka and Lively, like, just getting Luka a rim runner that can play like this, who's so energetic, and as long as he stays healthy, like, some of that will slow down as he gets bigger and as he gets more miles on him, but it's still gonna be hugely impactful. Lively's gonna be an all-star caliber player in this league. As time goes by, I look at him and I go, it's like, this is like Tyson Chandler if he had better coaching when he was young.
Yeah.
And Tyson turned into an all defensive player. It took him a couple of years because he had really bad coaching, and the league was a lot different. I don't know about the 3-point thing. He's hit him in practice. Good for him for hitting the one. That was also like the moment where I was like, oh no. Like, I was like, all right, all my bets are dead. When Lively hit the 3-pointer, I was like, okay, that's it. Holiday over 1.5 steals and blocks. This is an interesting one, given that all of like your other cap is very much Mavericks. Not that like Jrue could easily get this in a Mavericks blowout, but why do you like over 1.5 steals and blocks?
Yeah, I think if Boston were to win and close it out in Game 5, Jrue Holiday is going to play 40 plus minutes. So just from pure minute standpoint, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity there. He's only hit over 1.5 stocks in half the games, in game 2 and in game 2. So he's only hit this once. I think he's due for a nice defensive statistical game. And if he is going to be the primary defender on Kyrie, I think you're going to see a lot of, jumping passing lanes and things like that. So I like him to get this just from a steal standpoint. Blocks is a little tougher, but he likes to do those strips down low, and those can be considered blocks or steals. It doesn't matter at this point. But I like Jrue Holiday, and again, if Boston is going to win this game, he's going to play 40 plus minutes on Monday night.
Let's go to Luka Doncic, who you are. Look, I've lost on this, so good luck to you. But I bet him I give him in game 2, game 3, and game 4. And the fact that he just finds these ways to not get over that number, it's very frustrating to me, whether it's fouling out of the game or not playing in garbage time. Mm-hmm. Look, the trend has always been that Luka has these amazing bounce back games. That after a loss, he's absolutely nailed, and he puts up 35. That's the average for him, as he puts up 35 points. I don't know if the pace is going to get there. The pace in these games has stayed in the 90s. Now, Jason Kidd talked a lot about how he wanted them to play faster in game 4, and Luka kind of stressed that. And I think it's a good approach for them. They managed to win with their defense being better in game 4. Like, their offense was better and their defense was better. They kicked their ass on both ends of the floor. But the possessions were actually glacial in this game. And that's one of the reasons why I can't bet the total is like the scoring trends a little bit more towards the over, but the pace, like this was in non-garbage time, which was not very much of it. It was, they were on at 69 possessions, probably 21 in the fourth. So like 90, 91, that's been about where the series has been possession wise. So it's too slow for me. That's one of the reasons I don't want to bet Luka is like, if it's just like a slow game, I don't know if he's going to have enough possessions to get over, but tell me why you want to go ahead and go in on the Luka big game prop.
Yeah, there's a couple things. Matt, you're absolutely right. He hasn't hit over 32.5 in this series yet, which is crazy to think about because this guy basically averaged 35 during the regular season. But I firmly do believe he is a better player on the road from a scoring standpoint than at home. His 2 best scoring games in this series even has been in games 1 and games 2 in Boston. Those were in losses. We remember the game, the clinching game in Minnesota where he had all those points, a clinching game in Phoenix in game 7 during that series. He just shows up, in my opinion, in the playoffs more on the road than at home. And I think a lot of it is because his role players step up a lot more at American Airlines Center. So I don't think we're going to see a team here at Dallas that is going to fold over. And if they're going to be competitive, there's really one guy, in my opinion, that is the primary reason for that, and it's going to be Luka Doncic. He is also coming off not only an 0 for 8 3-point game in game 4, but he's 1 for 15 if you include game 3 as well. So you expect a little regression. A lot of people overrate his 3-point shooting. He is not a great 3-point shooter, but he is also not a 20% 3-point shooter. So whether that regresses in this game or maybe next year down the road, you do expect a little bounce back from a 3-point shooting standpoint. So if he were to hit 2 to 3 threes in game 5, I think this number is going to fly over. So I like it. I agree with Matt. If I was on him previously, it would be really, really frustrating because any other alternate universe, especially in game 4 there, if the game was within 20 points, right, he would have played more in that fourth quarter and this would have gone over. But again, I predict a competitive game, and if it's a competitive game, I think Luka is going to be the primary reason for that. So I like the over 32.5.
To Albert's point, in the NBA playoffs this season, Luka Doncic averages 4.7 more points per game on the road than at home. He averages 31.1, which is below this number, but 31.1 on the road and 26.5 at home. Rebounds and assists are largely the same. He averages about a board more, 0.7 more, only 0.1 more assists. He has shot 40% from the field at home, and he has shot 48% from the field on the road. He has shot 25% from 3 at home and 39% from 3 on the road. So, and that's in 11 games. So we got a decent sample there on that one as well. I like Tatum and Doncic over 61.5. So if Luka goes over, then this is easy because it's like 27 for Tatum. I do think Tatum has figured out some stuff as the series has gone on, and while he's had a bad playoffs, I still think that he can get to like 28 drawing free throws, etc. If the Mavericks lose, Luka probably still puts up 30. If the Celtics win, Tatum probably puts up 30. This is right on the number, I think, in terms of like how close it is, but I do like the over a little bit there at 61.5. Dante Exum's a lot easier for me. Jason Kidd like was very open after game 3 about I should have gotten him more time on the floor. I always laugh when these coaches say that, when they're like, I got to find a way to get him on the floor more. And I'm like, you tell him to go into the game. That's all you have to do to get him on the floor more, is point at him and say, go in, and then tell him who to come in for. That there's not like a complex mechanism that you have to operate. This is not complex machinery. You just tell the guy to play more. And I understand why it is more of a struggle, because DJJ has been a huge part of getting them there. I actually don't like how DJJ has played in this series. I think that's one of the reasons why game 4 was an outlier, is Dereck played awesome, and I just don't think this is a good matchup for him. And I think that probably regresses a little bit in game 5. But either way, I think Exum plays. And if the Mavericks once again get control, they need another ball handler. They need somebody else who can create. They need anybody who can like take a shot from 3, drive a little bit, create. So Exum's points being this low to me is absolutely, it's wild at 2.5. I think that's an absolutely crazy number. So I'll take the over 2.5 points for Dante Exum, plus 100 at BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Okay, that's going to do it. If we do a same game parlay with these picks, if we do Mavs plus 6.5, Luka over 32.5, and Lively over 8.5 rebounds, they will not let us add in Dante Exum. If we do those 3, it's plus 425. So there's your same game parlay. Again, I am not on either side of this, but if you want to tail ACs, you can get Mavs plus 6.5, Luka over 32.5 points, Lively over 8.5 rebounds. If you love the Mavericks in this spot, this is probably a pretty good one, because this definitely scripts as a Mavericks win here at plus 425. All right, that'll do it for Best Bets. We'll have Buckets live after Game 5. Make sure to check it out in the fourth quarter and running overtime, after the game, rather. And then we will, if the series ends, we'll do a series wrap-up or a season wrap-up with Brandon Anderson later this week. If not, we'll be back for Game 6, heading forward in the NBA Finals. My thanks to Albert Nguyen, the analytics capper, David Payne, our star producer, helping us out, Hutton Jackson, the video crew, getting this up on youtube.com/The Action Network. Make sure to download the Action Network app. Till we see you guys again, let's get buckets.